Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, is made possible in part by Allstate and the Searle Funds at the Chicago Community Trust.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices. I'm Phil Ponce, and thank you for sharing part of your holiday weekend with us. On the show tonight, a Latino Voices and Black Voices crossover conversation on the future of abortion rights after the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Concerns around border policy after more than 50 migrants are found dead in a hot truck in San Antonio. The family members of a National Guardsman are demanding answers a year after the young soldier was killed in a drive-by shooting. Plus, a new film spotlighting Chicago's street art. We speak with the writer and lead actor of Tagged. First off tonight, the future of abortion rights is uncertain after the Supreme Court's historic ruling overturning Roe v. Wade. The new ruling has led to ongoing protests nationwide as states swiftly enact abortion bans and restrictions. But questions remain about how the bans will be enforced and what it may mean for women seeking a safe abortion. Joining us now as part of the special crossover with Chicago Tonight Black Voices are Stephen Ramirez, a law professor at Loyola University Chicago, Linda Tortolero, president and CEO of Mujeres Latinas en Acción, Felicia Davis Blakely, president and CEO of Chicago Foundation for Women, and Noah Smith-Drelich, an assistant professor of law at IIT Chicago Kent College of Law. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for doing double duty with Black Voices. Linda Tortolero, as someone who runs an organization dedicated to supporting Latinos and their families, the impact of this new ruling on the people you serve.
I think for us, it's directly makes us think about what we need to do to educate our population about how important it is to live in a state where we protect this right. I think it's also critical that we make sure that our families understand that our children, our relatives out of state may come to us seeking an abortion because Illinois is a safe haven for those that want not only abortion, but other access to reproductive health. And I think that that is critical because we tend to go to family for that. But I also think this is a time to make sure that Latinas understand that they are directly and disproportionately impacted by this ruling. Like many women of color, the lack of access is real. And we have to make sure that we stand up for the rights for other Latinas and women of color outside of Illinois.
Felicia Davis Blakely, your thoughts on the potential impact of this ruling on women of color?
Yeah, I would say, no conversation can be had about the reversal of Roe without discussing the intersection of poverty, education, access, and racism, and the multifaceted health disparities that women of color already face today. Going into this, we know that women are more likely to raise a child in poverty if their ability to terminate unwanted pregnancy ends. We know that that also impacts not only their economic status, their ability to actually safely carry a child in a community context if the community itself doesn't have adequate resources. So there's a layered approach here. It's not just a single issue, and the health of women of color primarily are at risk here.
Professor Smith-Drelich, now that abortion regulations are up to the states, we see the specter, anyway, of women traveling from one state to another to seek a safe abortion. What is the prospect that some states might try to limit the ability of women to travel outside of a state for abortions?
I think it's near certain that states are going to at least attempt this. Now, whether they do so successfully is really a different question. The Constitution protects travel in a variety of ways. Justice Kavanaugh actually specifically referenced this in his concurrence, saying that he didn't believe that such regulations would be constitutional. But the various ways that the Constitution protects travel are not that well understood. So I do expect to see a lot of attempts made to criminalize or otherwise burden travel for purposes of getting an abortion. And I expect to see a lot of litigation over those things.
In terms of a potential chilling effect, anyone, what might that? How might that impact behavior? Any one of you?
I would say that we've already seen, at least in Illinois, starting in 2020, we'd already started to see this chilling effect as people coming to Illinois, pregnant people coming to Illinois, surged by 30%. And that was before this decision. And even today, as we talk about it, I think that there are people who may live in a state where abortion is legal, but because of all of the media attention, they may be fearful of actually seeking those services. Here in Illinois, a woman's choice is protected. And I think we need to do everything that we possibly can to make sure that every woman, every pregnant person understands that so that they don't take any drastic measures and risk harming themselves.
Professor Ramirez, right after the decision, the new ruling was made, there was speculation, there were thoughts, there was concern in some quarters that other rights would be impacted. Now that there's been a week or so to think about it, what are your thoughts on the extent to which this could impact other rights down the road?
Well, Justice Thomas, in his concurring opinion, was quite clear that not just Roe versus Wade, but same-sex marriage, gay rights, the right of married couples to use birth control, all of those were bound up in this case. And the reason is because it all goes back to the right to privacy. The claim here is that unenumerated rights that are not historically rooted in terms of 1789 or 1868 or whatever year you want to pick are not worthy of protection. Now, that's directly contrary to the Ninth Amendment that says unenumerated rights shall not be construed to be denied or disparaged. So this originalism argument really is not something that was originally in the Supreme Court, in the Constitution. And in fact, you have to ignore the Ninth Amendment to get there. So yeah, I think a lot of rights are at stake, actually, including, as Noah referred to, the right to travel. That also is not an enumerated right. So presumably the right to travel could be on the chopping block.
And yet, Professor Ramirez, as you pointed out, some of the other justices said, oh, we don't mean that. We don't mean for it to include that prohibition and so forth. Are you assuaged at all by those assurances, or do you think there's a real possibility that the court could eventually go the route of Justice Thomas?
Well, the assurances that they've made in the past have not held up well. So everybody said that Roe versus Wade was settled law, and then once they got on the court, I guess they had their fingers crossed behind their back when they said that, because they paid no heed to that whatsoever. So I don't really put a lot of stock in the dicta of the court's opinion in Dobbs on the right to travel, for example, or how Justice Alito feels about these other implied rights. I think the reality is that Justice Thomas's concurrence has invited challenges to all sorts of implied rights, and I think those challenges are now going to come to fruition, and we'll see how the court rules. But there seems to be a solid majority of Republican appointees who are ready to say that if a right is not enumerated in the Constitution or deeply rooted in history, whatever that means, that it's not worthy of protection.
Linda Tortolero, as Illinois becomes or is, as has been pointed out, a, quote, safe haven for abortions, and presuming that there's an increase in the number of women coming here for abortions, is the state ready for it? Are clinics and providers ready?
So it's my understanding that Planned Parenthood has, understood that this could possibly happen for some time, and they've really been a leader in preparing as they could. And other providers of abortion access and reproductive health have also been ramping up efforts to build clinics and expand staff as quickly as they can. I think the question is, how much can Illinois do to help those that do not have insurance, do not have the financial resources to seek abortions here? What kind of responsibility do we have to do that, given all the other responsibilities we have as a state? And I think that's a big question to ask, because I want to see Illinois continue to be a leader in this and in other progressive causes. But we do have to balance that with what is possible. But I would hope that Illinois can continue to be as welcoming as possible to provide other residents outside of our state the opportunity to seek what they fairly deserve.
And that is where we'll have to leave it for now in this special crossover conversation in conjunction with Chicago Tonight Black Voices. And our thanks to Stephen Ramirez, Linda Tortolero, Felicia Davis-Blakely, and Noah Smith-Drelitz. Thank you all.
Thank you.
The deaths of 53 migrants in San Antonio, Texas this week is renewing concerns about border policies and immigration reform. The migrants died in sweltering heat after being left in a tractor trailer without air conditioning or water. This case of human smuggling is being called the deadliest in U.S. history. Joining us now with more are Oscar Chacon, he's director of Alianza Americas, and Azadeh Erfani, a senior policy analyst with the National Immigrant Justice Center. And thank you both for joining us. First of all, a quick reaction from both of you to what happened and the severity of it. Azadeh Erfani, your thoughts?
First of all, devastation. This is an absolutely horrific situation, and our heart goes out to the families of these migrants and the survivors as well. But you know, the second issue that's pressing for me is this was unfortunately predictable. It's a byproduct of really harsh deterrence policies that this administration and previous administrations have been pursuing. So I really hope that this administration learns the lesson and actually pays attention to the systemic issues raised here.
Oscar Chacon, was it predictable?
Absolutely predictable. I agree very much with what Azadeh has just said, but I would add that this was a completely avoidable tragedy. If we were to recognize the fact that immigrants and immigration have truly been a blessing for the U.S. all along, including today, and we were to shift not only our immigration policies, but our procedures at the border, this could have totally been avoided. And sadly, I am afraid to say that this is not going to be the last such tragedy, because for as long as we keep the wrong policies that we have had for too long in place, this kind of tragedy will continue to take human lives unavoidably.
Azadeh Erfani, the mayor of San Antonio says that the area where this truck was found is known to be an area that is frequented by smugglers, and we know that there was another smuggling incident in Texas this week where four immigrants died after a highway chase and a crash. Why do people use smugglers?
Honestly, they use smugglers because they have no other recourse, right? Right now at the border, all safe ports of entry are all actual ways to enter without taking these dangerous routes or having to turn to smugglers or smuggling networks. They're closed. There's no way for people to come. So as a result, these policies are fueling the use of smuggling while denouncing them in the same breath. So it really doesn't make sense, and it really illustrates the inhumane character of these deterrence policies.
Well, the mayor of San Antonio said this incident speaks to a larger issue at the border, and let's listen to what the mayor of San Antonio had to say.
Well, clearly, Congress's inability to reform our immigration system is causing or is manifesting in a lot of ways that are simply tragic. And by and large, migration and through our community has increased over the years.
So what policy changes do need to be made in order to prevent things like this from happening? Oscar Chacon, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, we absolutely need to create far more channels for people to be able to migrate in a way that is safe. We need to respect our own laws when it comes to humanitarian protection. Definitely get rid of programs such as Title 42, which has been used essentially to stop people from exercising their right to seek protection in the U.S. We need to also consider ways in which we can completely get away from the notion that immigrants and immigration are something bad for the country and recognize the facts. And the facts are that they have been incredibly positive for the United States of America. For as long as we continue to deny this truth, we will continue with the policies that are now in place, which frankly is where the problem lies. We also need to focus on what causes people to actually take these journeys in spite of all the risks that clearly are in their way. If we keep missing that, we will not be able to solve this problem in a way that is rational and humane.
Azadeh Irfani, what would you add in terms of needed policy changes?
I would say that, Oscar mentioned very good points, and just to be crystal clear, the issue here is asylum is basically impossible to seek these days. So really reopening courts for purposes of asylum access is vital to these incidents not happening again. And the other thing is, the U.S. sets an example throughout the world. So when the U.S. does this here, these incidents have ripple effects in other parts. And we've seen this happening just last week with 23 people at least dying in Spain. So, the U.S. is not alone in causing devastation by its border policies and basically punishing people, criminalizing them for trying to come to this country to seek protection.
Oscar Chacon, given the political polarization that exists right now in this country, to what extent do you think it's actually politically viable to enact meaningful immigration reform?
In all honesty, very unlikely, especially in a year like this. And that is so because of the sad fact that many politicians have found immigration and the hatred against immigrants who have for many years been demonized and dehumanized as politically, electorally profitable. And so it's very hard for me to imagine that we will be able to do something meaningful between now and the end of the year. But I believe that that is exactly the obligation that our policymakers have. They are paid for us as a nation to have proper policies, and we haven't had proper policies for more than 40 years.
And that's where we will have to leave it. Our thanks to Azadeh Irfani and to Oscar Chacon. Thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And up next, the family is searching for answers on the one-year anniversary of their son's death. We share their story right after this. A family still searching for answers to why a 19-year-old National Guardsman was killed in the Belmont-Cragen neighborhood last summer. The family is now demanding State's Attorney Kim Foxx's office reevaluate the case. Our Joanna Hernandez spent time with the family as they prepared for a memorial service for the young soldier on the one-year anniversary of his death.
Lourdes Lara visits her son's grave daily.
He was in a point in his life where he was young. He was just beginning to live.
There are days she puts on music and spends time watering the flowers on his burial site.
Last year around this time, we were preparing to welcome him home, thrilled that he was coming home. And now our lives are changed forever.
19-year-old Chris Carvajal had graduated as a National Guardsman and was set to be stationed at a military base in Riverside, Illinois. Last summer, he was shot dead over 4th of July weekend.
He was invited to a party with his girlfriend. At one point, he decides to go to his car, and he was 3 cars away from his when he fell to the ground.
According to police reports, Carvajal was gunned down on July 3rd in a drive-by shooting. His family says detectives collected evidence, including witness testimony, but State Attorney Kim Foxx declined to press charges.
Her team decided that even with all the evidence and all the witnesses and a singled out person, it still wasn't enough.
In a statement, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office says they've reviewed the information presented by police and, quote, At this time, it was determined that the evidence was insufficient to meet our burden of proof to file charges. Almost a year later, the family's calling on Fox to revisit the case.
He was working towards becoming a Chicago police officer as well. He was going to serve and protect your city. The minimal you could do, the least you could do, is bring justice.
Veteran Marcos Torres never met the young soldier, but has been working with the family to bring justice to the case.
What is the message that we are sending to our citizens here in Chicago and the rest of the United States? If you are doing the right thing, if you are serving your country honorably and respectfully, and you get killed right here in our own streets, and the people who are in charge to prosecute don't prosecute.
Jennifer Ramirez says she wants the world to remember her younger brother as the hardworking and loving young man he was.
We want the youth, so young kids, to follow his steps. You know, he had a bright future ahead of him, and he had many goals, and he was working towards those goals. And even though his life was cut short, he achieved many of those goals. And one of them was, of course, joining the National Guard.
This was my son's life, his atmosphere, his family.
As Lara flips through an album of her son's pictures, you can see a glimpse of the life Chris lived. A life, Lara says, is filled with family and friends.
No matter what I do, my son is not coming back. I would give up my life for my son to come back.
As the family prepares to come together for a memorial service this weekend, a grieving mother holds on to her faith that justice will come.
We take it one day at a time. The message I want to convey to the young people is don't give up. You are a voice for the city and your community.
For Latino Voices, I'm Joanna Hernandez.
And the family is offering a $25,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. And back with more Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, right after this. A new film set in Chicago and produced by a Chicago film company highlights the city's rich history of street art. Tagged follows a street artist named Lex who gets caught up in a murder investigation after the vape shop owner who hired him to create a mural suddenly disappears.
Spray paint's illegal in the city.
Yet vandalism's everywhere.
Some people consider it art.
Tagged was released earlier this week by Colonel Productions. That's a grassroots film production company based in Bucktown. The film's writer says he was inspired to release a film about community art after the 2020 murder of George Floyd and the protests that followed.
One of the stores across the street from my apartment, was boarded up, and they commissioned a graffiti artist to paint something temporary on. As I'm sure you saw everywhere, and really everywhere in the city, they were putting art left and right. And I watched this guy over the span. He must have been crunched for time because he'd wait for the paint to dry and he'd come back over a span of like 2 days. I thought the dude was done like 7 times, and he just kept perfecting and perfecting and perfecting. And I was like, wow, he's putting this amount of just work and heart into something that he knows is going to be down in like a week. I was like, I have to write a story about a graffiti artist.
The main character, Lex, is played by an up-and-coming actor, Graham Otero Lovemore, who used to be a tagger himself and is from Chicago.
Alex, who's the protagonist of the film, he's a tagger and he's been in trouble with the law. I understand that. I'm a felon. I grew up in Chicago. I've also lived in the suburbs. I'm a foster kid and an orphan, so I've seen like the obvious negative sides to being an orphan and just sort of someone without a home. And this is the city where I found myself, where I have my kids. So this is my home, and I think Alex is is a reflection of who I am, just in someone else's story. Hopefully, you know, when people watch it who also have experiences with graffiti, they'll be like, oh yeah, you know, I've been to that spot, I've been around here, and it'll be, you know, yeah, like how you said, a love letter to Chicago and the culture.
For information on how to watch Tagged, you can head to our website, WTTW.com/news. And that is our show for this weekend. If you're watching us on Saturday night, know that you can also catch Latino Voices and Black Voices on Sundays beginning at 10 p.m. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, I'm Phil Ponce. Thank you for sharing part of your weekend with us. Stay healthy, stay safe, and happy 4th of July. Buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm whose attorneys embrace a culture of philanthropy and service by volunteering their time, expertise, and guidance to help others in the greater Chicago community.